small group. It seems kind of strange to be so formal, but hopefully we have some people joining us online. Welcome to LiTFUSE FUEL. I'd like to start by acknowledging that Tieton Arts and Humanities resides on the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakima Nation. Tieton Arts and Humanities values all relationships that reinforce our commitment to art as a powerful tool for equity and diversity. In recognizing the history and respecting the sovereignty of Washington's Indian nations, Tieton Arts and Humanities recognizes and honors these first people and their significant role in stewarding these lands as they continue to honor and uphold their ancient heritage. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for those of you who are online. And besides a thanks to all of you, I'd like to acknowledge our appreciation of the financial contributions of our many donors that make it possible for us to make this a free event. Poetry Foundation, Humanities Washington, National Endowment for the Humanities, Washington State Arts Commission, National Endowment for the Arts, Fresh Hop Ale Festival, Yakima Chief Hops, Discurin Foundation, Yakima Valley Community Foundation, Inklings Bookstore, Fiesta Foods, and Yakima Coffee House Poets, and of course many other private donors. And I'm not going to read what my husband scratched on here. Thank you. And while Fuel is a free event, I encourage those of you who have means to please consider donating or sponsoring a portion of our event or our evenings, just to make sure that we have means to provide for those who can't provide and still need the nourishment of poetry. A reminder, I think all of you have been here before, but just in case, there is a bathroom around the corner outside, old gas station bathroom. It's been redone, but it is outside, and you don't have to carry the hubcap. We are streaming tonight's event, so if you didn't do so on that sign-up sheet and you don't want to be recorded, please just mark that you don't want to be recorded. And then, and now let me introduce Michael Schmeltzer, who we're all here to see tonight. Michael Schmeltzer is a biracial author originally from Japan. He currently lives in Seattle, where he serves as editor-in-chief of Floating Bridge Press. His poetry book, Empire of Surrender 2022, is the winner of the 2021 Wandering Aengus Book Award. Along with Meghan McClure, he is the co-author of the nonfiction book, A Single Throat Opens, a lyric exploration of addiction and family. His debut full-length Blood Song was a finalist for the Washington State Book Award in Poetry, the Julie Suk Award, and the Coil Book Award. His honors include a 2019 Jack Straw Fellowship, the Gulf Stream Award for Poetry, and Blue Earth's Review Flash Fiction Prize. He has been a finalist for Four Way Books Intro and Levis Prizes, the Zone 3 Press First Book Prize, and John Ciardi Prize for Poetry from BKMK Press, the OSU Press, the Journal Award in Poetry, and most recently, the Jake Adam York Prize. Everyone, please, let's welcome Michael.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for having me. Jen, thank you very much for the invite to be here and for the lovely accommodations and for our chance to get out of the city. It is very nice to be here, very nice to be in front of you all reading today. I have a longer time than I think I've ever read for, so I'm going to kind of go through a little bit of just my entire collection, I guess. I'll make it snappy and fast and hopefully enjoyable for you all. But I want to start off with a poem from a friend of mine, actually. I always like to use these opportunities to showcase other poets that I admire. And my friend Kate Hansen Foster, whose new book, Crow Funeral, recently came out, is a brilliant poet, so I just want to start off by reading one of her poems. This poem is called Godless. It is not the word that brings me to a perfect halt. It is a hard, unbreakable consonant that hurts my mouth like an olive pit. Something clean, something finished in my inner ear, and outside all lung and no breath. It is easy to remember this kind of stillness. I want it on my skin like a tick. I want to lie down like a dog for what it might give me. In the compost across the yard, Bugs suck at my scraps, fire soot, coffee grind, apple core, and I think, save nothing. And I am in love. I am in love with this quiet church. So that was Kate Hansen Foster's poem Godless from Crow Funeral. So if you like that poem, she is basically flawless in her abilities to write great poems, so you'll find just more like that. I'm going to start off, so as Jen mentioned, I'm the editor-in-chief of Floating Bridge Press, but before I had that title, I was actually just a submitter to their chapbook competition. I won their competition back in 2015 for Elegy Elk River, which I describe as my shattered narrative through the lens of like kind of a fairy tale. It's like a surreal fairy tale that I kind of based on a little bit about one of the hometowns I grew up in once I moved to America, Elk River, Minnesota. So I'd just like to read a couple poems from this. Elegy Elk River. 1. You will get lost, so let me explain. Head down Main Street, where a rabid dog like a tyrant was shot by the frightened townsfolk. Take a left when you reach the dirt road. There's a bright red house, and its porch light summons a moth. Inside, a mother stirs a liquid in a black pot. She tastes the fluid sweet on her fingertips, the same way small-town boys taste their first beer in a clearing. They drink too much. They wobble toward the sway of what they think is a rope swing. When they arrive, one boy screams, the other stumbles on upturned roots as he darts. A third buckles, stunned like a bird, ignorant of glass. 2. It's late. We're still here. We may as well take the shortcut across the cleat-wrecked field behind my old high school. Sneak beneath the third set of bleachers where a girl named Alex showed me once her naked chest, and beyond the seats to the forest where she hung herself from an elm. I knew her mother as a lover of hummingbirds. When I heard Alex covered herself in homemade nectar, naturally I thought of a feeder. I brought her mother flowers that withered overnight. If you hear the moon's lament, its loon cry ululation endemic to loss, then you've entered Elk River. Take a peek, now turn around and go back. There's no more to see. I can give you directions home, but I've been here most of my life and am no less lost. Neighbors offer coffee and leftover cake. It's a kindness, sure, but beware the kind of violence found only in lures. The twirl of colored feathers, the bob and weave of barb and hook. Not every movement is dance. Not everything swallowed sustenance. So the poem, I use multiple perspectives. I have one from the narrator, one from the perspective of Alex, kind of before and after the suicide, and then I like to play around with perspective and time. I've always been really bad at tense in my poetry, so I just decided to go full in and just kind of eschew chronology in general. This poem is called Yours, Alex. Leaves discolor because of what trees are asked to hold overnight. Tire swings, a braid of rope, the dangling legs of a girl. What we tether ourselves to shapes us. So it is with the mother, who traces the loops of her daughter's handwriting. No particular word in that last letter any less wounding to the mind than the next. All those nauseating circles, the dizzying rings of a tree cut down. And then the last one I'm going to read from this is called Velocity. A hummingbird in full throttle, I flew south, left this town a blur. $2 theater, pregnant cat everyone fed, silos bloated with seed. In a dive, they reached 60 miles per hour, and in that moment before the noose became a necklace I could never remove, I remember taking off my sweater under the bleachers for this boy in the neighborhood, how his eyes hovered, drank deep the sugar of me. In his chest, the drone of wings intensified as he moved toward the Madrona I became, cracked bark peeled back, silver skin shimmering. But even if the boy had lunged, he'd never have caught me. Velocity is an angry mother pulling us by the ear, each kid jerked in opposite directions with equally stunned expressions. We were just children then, with different definitions of falling. So a lot of the poems, especially in the first two collections, the chapbook, Elegy Upriver, and Blood Song, are very much steeped in, I think, more of a child's perspective, I guess I would call it. It is very self-focused in a lot of way, and I would like to think that it grew from there to a more kind of global perspective in the latest book. But it's generally all fairly heavy material, so I'm trying to intersplice it with the newer work that I'm working on, which is a complete switch over. I'm just doing love poems, basically. And I'd like to see if I could read one here. This one from a future manuscript at some point is called Moon and Moon and Moon. The loneliness of pigeons and the stale bread of my body made this city uninhabitable. There are too many beaks and not enough song, too many worms hidden underground. There is the light bulb of the sun, like the most brilliant idea the sky ever had. But too often it's followed by moon and moon and moon. You left the coast quietly as a rain cloud. For days I barely broke soil. I practiced being nocturnal. While you slept, I glued glitter to the ceiling. I wanted to prove spackle could be a beautiful spectacle. Come home. Take a nap on the living room floor. When you wake, you'll wake to fake stars. And while I sleep, I'll dream you couldn't tell the difference. So I'm going to read a couple poems from Blood Song. This is my debut collection, and I want to thank to Sylvias Press for giving this book a chance. It meant a lot to me to have a wonderful local Northwest press kind of give it its wings. So thank you to the editors, Kelly and Annette. This first poem is called Inherited Music. Because gray clouds gorge on themselves, we intuitively know rain will be the byproduct. Below them, starving palominos stomp the fallow field. If you believe the stories my mother bequeathed, then you trust the shrinking skin against their further protruding ribs composes an eerie music, a lullaby with ominous lyrics. It explains why she so often crept to the barn and fell asleep beside these creatures while they stood lock-kneed and slumbering. Somewhere in their stomachs, a song you'd only sing at a child's funeral. I never heard it, nor did I hear my mother speak repeatedly about her mother dying, because I was deaf with youth. At home, she nearly faded into the beige sofa. A lit cigarette abandoned itself to ash. There's my mother, leaning into the frayed corner of a throw pillow, and I enter the room brashly, asking about dinner, singing a stupid song I just heard on the radio. I always think of that moment. That part is based on a true story where my grandmother passed away, and I had no idea how to handle my parents being human and grieving, and is just one of those moments I kind of regret, that I wish I had the emotional intelligence to actually be there for my parents when they were going through things like that. I'm going to kind of switch over to a dad poem. I've kind of like fluctuate between the two in this book. On the branch a bird we bid goodbye. I boxed my father's vinyl and stored them in the bloated sun of Minnesota. I was an adolescent who mistook light for safety. It was the year I ran away and learned warmth deforms what we hold dear. I returned 3 days later. 5 a.m. and the wrens chirped my arrival. Most mornings, no one wakes up to welcome you with music. But when I opened the door, my father flew off the recliner, his expression warped from weeping. On the phonograph, my favorite tune warbled like a sick bird as I tried to mend the wrinkles on his face. Like stems, I carelessly snapped. So my parents live fairly close to me. They live about 40 minutes south of me or 30 minutes south of me. And my father had a stroke back in 2018. It was a day before my 40th birthday. And there was a lot of back and forth. My mom doesn't have her license, so there's a lot of driving him to the hospital or physical therapy and stuff like that. So I've taken on more the role of caretaker. And it's been a struggle, but there are moments that I am trying to appreciate. So this is a poem kind of related to that. The Catch. And this is just from an untitled manuscript. It's the same love thing that I'm working on. Like I said, I'm going to intersplice these, try to keep the mood from being too somber. The Catch. When my father, having fallen, texted me for help, I flinched. I held the phone as if it were his shriveled hand. When I arrived, I touched his arm to send the message. Hold on, I got you. I am transparently wounded by this wonderless week and trudge along at an age greasy with misery. And yet my anxiety humbles itself into a little monk in my stomach. He understands to slice a peach in peak ripeness is a delight that bears the weight of the world. There is a whole sunset in the juice of that fruit. When I order a coffee on the way home, the barista over the intercom speaks in a voice pastel with friendliness, a catch of joy so genuine, I call her by your name. Sitting upright is a simple dignity I've taken for granted. Even from the floor of my living room, I can witness everyone I love. I raised my father to his feet and felt in my muscles their great potential for failure. We do not talk often enough about the body. We do not revel in its ability to move other bodies toward domestic grandeur. What a blessing. His fragile body, leaning against mine prepared to catch him. And then I'm going to read one last from Blood Song. This one is called Isaac Newton's Teeth, which was a prompt that a friend gave me. He gave me the title and I was supposed to write a poem based on that. So, Isaac Newton's Teeth. When I was young, I flicked my father's flimsy earlobes as if they were fat little bells, and I was happy. Then one day I stopped, or he left. I don't know enough about the order of things to say which came first. The smallest force creates a chain of events we shackle to the ankle of our futures. You've heard this too. The monarch's wings, delicate to the point of non-existence, breath by breath cause a microburst across the world. How much worse the damage then, caused by the whip tip of a finger stinging and stinging a father. Our ignorance often accelerates us. So much of what we know of motion, propelled by what we don't know about impact. Newton was born 3 months after his father died. Everything the scientist learns amounts to a speck of black pepper reacting against his father's teeth, those small canvases of absence. So I'm going to begin reading from Empire of Surrender. And this book kind of came about for multiple reasons. Multiple things were kind of happening in my personal life and just in the nation in general. I'm not going to get too political about it, but in 2016, the country became very divided politically, and online just got worse, and that space became extremely volatile, and I was kind of caught in this weird middle space where there was a lot of strange attacks on me from simultaneously white supremacists and also the political left that decided it was chaotic, and now I hate social media and I hate online spaces, and I love communal spaces in person like this, but I've been thinking a lot about what that means, that kind of division and that binary thinking that people can get into when it comes to good versus evil. And I've been thinking about my own heritage and my place in that. My grandparents both fought in the war, World War II, and they were basically fighting each other. And so, a generation later, here we are, where I am kind of the product of these two fighting nations. And so I'm trying to think what that means as an individual, what that means when I think about myself in a historical context. So that's essentially where this book came from, is thinking about war, thinking about juxtaposing that against tenderness and what children witness, basically, when it comes to our battles as adults. So where Blood Song was me as a child kind of looking at the world, I like to think of this book being more me as an adult looking at the world and wondering what it does to children. So I'm going to start with this poem, Feathers Where Fangs Should Be. And this was actually kind of inspired by one of the Trump quotes where he talked about there are some very fine people on both sides, which I don't necessarily co-sign that, but I do think there are some very bad people on both sides, so I wanted to kind of tackle that. Feathers where fangs should be. I know what I've done. Hammered out my fangs and replaced them with a celebration of feathers in order to enamor, not puncture. When threatened, every mouth should respond with flight or flight. Verily, I learned to love the rich taste of blood, but only my own. How I've healed is a mystery, sponge-soft nation as I am. If children teach us anything, it's how to be weak and better for it. Don't believe me? Declare a war you believe just. I'll show you the signatures of good men on both sides who claim for the sake of peace, we must tear out the tender throats of children. War like the sting of a honeybee. Bury a mine until the enemy is yours. Watch as they step down as if on a hive, and shrapnel rises like a swarm of bees. Watch the bees sink into the sovereign flower of a soldier's body. Search every bloom and balm. There is no honey left in the world. I am peddling dahlias and acorns, the auburn of fat squirrels and the flit of finches. No matter how handsome, deny the soldier who offers a carnation in the age of carnage. Don't be fooled into thinking the war needs more red. If heroism is the sacrifice of self for others, what is more heroic than the honeybee? Its sting results in its death, its abdomen eviscerated in defense of the queen. Dear enemy, I am no hero. I will do no such thing for royalty. Believe, I want to glory in your suffering, but not nearly enough. I'm going to switch it up and read, I guess, what could possibly amount to a love poem to a friend who passed away. Boyd Benson was a brilliant, brilliant poet, and he passed away several years back, but I wrote a poem for him. In the valley of snow, water is criminal. If only we could imagine children again. What T.H. White wrote is true. How fatally easy to make the young believe they are awful. I cup water in my hands, telling the snow not to worry, that they are, despite it all, the same. The snow won't listen. As it melts, it becomes the thing it hates. There can be a terrific joy that appears like a horse from the fog. Make of yourself an innocence like a sugar cube. When I was a child and walked in snow deeper than I was tall, I pulled up my foot to step, but my boot remained. Just like that, I believed in magic. The disappearing thing I knew must be around but could no longer see. I want to speak of the buried. I want to mention my friend who melted away from his body. He is no longer where anyone can see, but I want to believe he, at some point in his life, let a horse, steam roiling from its muzzle, eat from his dry, cracked hands, and felt its soft mouth consecrate his palms. I'm going to read a longer poem here. This is a poem. I have a nod to Gerald Stern's poem, Lucky Life. If anyone knows that poem, he has a very fantastic ending on that poem where it's just lucky life, oh lucky life, oh lucky, lucky life, lucky life. And I love the rhythms, I love the phrase, I love everything about that. So I kind of took the rhythms of that and I added it to this poem's ending. A soft rebellion with a nod to Gerald Stern's Lucky Life. Exactly a year after my father's stroke, a butter yellow bird flew into the window near where I was reading. I went out and cupped it the way a child would catch rain in his hands, thinking eventually he could quench his thirst, that optimistic and hopeless. Tradition states when eating the ortolan, you must cover your head in a towel, shield from God's eyes the decadence and shame of such sin, to eat music itself while remaining in silence and darkness. I stroked the bird back to consciousness. When I put it down, it couldn't fly. It hopped and hopped. What happened next is awful and happens to all of us, though the method varies. I don't want to say it yet. For now, please understand everything I do wrong, I do out of a stupid desire to be good. The bird is to be consumed whole, feet first, while the person holds the head. I am ready to tell you the way one may eat the ortolan is the way the drain consumed the bird as it skipped away in fear. Feet first, then the egg drop of its body, finally the delicate head disappearing, that final lovely thing. Intelligent disobedience, the trait in service dogs to ignore commands if it goes against the safety of its owner. Father, bird, give me an order so I can prove my love. You're creating beauty, Henry, an old man said to an even older man over cups of coffee. I wasn't brave enough to ask what it was Henry did. I don't know if I've ever asked a brave question, but friend, pretend I did ask. And the older man said he made leaves of red glass and wire that hung from his porch. And when the wind blew, they made a tiny music, small as the song of a bird you could hold in the palm of your hand. It is beautiful, isn't it? Leaves that never fall, glass that never mistook itself for air. Dear bird, the old man talked about his father who owned a barber shop, and the lime-scented aftershave all the men requested. There's beauty in that, too. To use a straight razor and leave the skin smooth. To understand a blade doesn't always harm. Another man he knew was shot for brandishing a knife. He didn't talk about birds or glass or sky. He didn't mention death. He just shook his head when he said the police shot the man. The man wasn't a threat. He would have listened if told to put down the weapon. He would never have disobeyed. Dear old man, my father can't walk anymore. He doesn't speak about his father like you do, and I don't know what my grandfather did for a living, or how he used his hands. I inherited his machete from the war. My father knew a few men who shot others, and men who had been shot. Unlike you, he isn't a storyteller. What he knows he keeps mostly to himself, an egg of memory, careful not to crush or reveal it. He will die with the whole egg in his mouth, and I will be there to wipe his lips after. It is the recognition of beauty or the failure of it to cry over the death of a bird I once held in my palms. I did not want to hurt it, so I put it down. What do I know of caring for the broken or about stories like this? When my father suffered a stroke, he repeatedly mumbled not to call 911. I could not obey. I left the living room and talked to the emergency operator. I described his sloped face, his paralysis and slurred speech, like words on top of other words, my daughter said. I walked back in. I waited for the EMTs to lift his limp body and drive him to the hospital. I comforted my crying mother. I called my wife. I waited again. My father, my mother, nurses, doctors, janitors, strangers, cooks, and cashiers. Everywhere I walked and waited for someone to acknowledge how I ignored my father's single urgent command, my soft rebellion. Dear bird, I heard a story on the radio about a truck that nearly collided with a blind man. Dear old man, the man's dog held him back, despite the stern order to proceed, and saved the life of this new father and the infant daughter he had strapped to his chest. Dear stroke, you've taken too much. All I ask in return is to hear the relieved father say, good boy, oh, good boy, oh, good, good boy, good boy.
Ooh.
Thank you for bearing with me on that long poem. It's a tough one to get through. I am going to read one last that is not from the book, but it is a personal favorite. And once again, it's just from my hopefully love poem book that I'll eventually put together. Every summer we go to ocean shores and visit the ocean. I love the Pacific, and I always write these little love poems when I go in the summer with my family. This one is called It Could Be Worse. Maybe the world ends in orange. It could be worse. Together we peel the sun with our attention until only juice remains. Is there anything more romantic than the presence of a lighthouse in the dark, or knowing the ocean with all our senses but sight? I want to be whelmed by the smell of the sea and the taste of salt. I am old-fashioned. I want to love you in black and white film and the crackle of vinyl. Waltz with me and I'll whisper, darling, you're the cat's meow. Shift and shore me gently against any apocalypse. Come to me like fog over sand, from doom to dune. Promise me I'm not alone in the end. Promise me we'll do this again someday. Thank you very much. I guess there's a little bit of time before for Q&A. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I have books for sale up here. I don't have many of Blood Song, but I have a few of the others. I'm doing a name your own price thing, so whatever you feel like they're worth, feel free to pay it or make a donation to Tieton and all the wonderful stuff they do here, and we'll call it even. So, otherwise, if there's no questions, I'm going to sit down.
Did your dad pass at that time?
Hmm?
Or did your dad pass at that time that you got him to the hospital, or?
No, like so it's kind of a funny story now looking back, but like I said, my parents live about 30 minutes south of me, but my mom called me. And it was like my day off, and I was very excited to have a day off, but my mom called me and she's like, "Oh, could you come down? I don't think Dad's feeling well." And I was like, "Oh, like, okay." So I drove down, and I was a little bit frustrated because I'm like, well, if he's not feeling well, maybe he should just sleep or whatever. But so I show up, and my dad is just on the floor, like unable to get up. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, why did they call me like that? It's like my mom was in shock. So, but they're still alive now, and I visit them like a couple times a month if I can to kind of take care of grocery shopping, and I help do the caretaking stuff. But yeah, it was dicey there for a little bit. He went into surgery, and then for 3 months after, I had to go through physical therapy and things like that. So, but yeah, I don't exactly know what my mom was thinking when she called me, but as soon as I entered, I knew there was something extremely wrong, and I knew the signs. So, but they're both well, and luckily it's just the physical part that has been affected. My dad is still very mentally there and very quick-witted and snarky as usual. So,
Has he said thank you, son?
he does often now. Yes, he does. So, which gets me through.
How does your heritage, your time in Japan, I know you were very young when you moved, but how does that impact you in your writing? And have you written much?
What's your question, Jen? We can't hear.
He was born in Japan. He lived there for the first 9 years of his life, so I'm wondering how that impacted.
Okay.
So, I think mainly it's probably impacted me in two ways the most. Like one, my kind of love of language probably stems from the fact that my mom, when we first moved here, always spoke to me in Japanese, and even in front of my friends would speak to me in Japanese, and I never quite understood that until I got older, and it was that kind of combination of feeling inadequate in a different language, as well as kind of embarrassed by her own accent. And so grappling with poetry is kind of this way, where my parents were very much into music, and they loved listening to different music, and like I said in the one poem, I've inherited a lot of my dad's vinyl. So, but there was always music around the house and things like that, but I think me trying to have some kind of mastery over language is, in a way, my own inheritance from my mom, where she was in this country that didn't speak her language, and this whole entire history that is basically forgotten from her side, that I can maybe, I don't know, in a weird way, retroactively create a language for her in this country, I guess. And I think the other way that it's affected my writing life is not exactly having a sense of geography is a big one for me. I feel very Japanese in some ways, but there's no connection to the land in the same way. Like, I spent a lot of time just feeling dislocated no matter where I was. And I still feel that sense where I don't quite know where I belong, or I don't quite feel kind of centered by any land or any culture per se. I feel very divided in a lot of ways. So I think family is the one kind of place where I do feel like I belong, but otherwise when it comes to whether it's a community of writers or the MFA program or different things that I've been involved in, I don't quite feel like I click in. So I think that's probably kind of part of my thing that I just took along from moving early on.
I'm curious to hear a little more about Floating Bridge Press. And because I'm not real familiar with it. I mean, I've heard of it,
Okay.
but I just
Yeah.
don't know what's the frequency and.
Yeah, I would love to give the little spiel about that. So Floating Bridge Press has, it's a nonprofit, all volunteer run press that's been going since 1994. And every year we publish a chapbook. We have a chapbook competition, and we publish one winner and one finalist usually. And it's only for Washington State poets. So those are the only people that can apply or submit are Washington State poets. We've published Rena Priest's Sublime Subliminal. Her latest is a chapbook that we've done. We have also published Claudia Castroluna, who was the former poet laureate. We've published her chapbook. A couple other poets that we've published, like there's Jory Mickelson up in Bellingham. We have Brenda Miller, who is a very established nonfiction writer, but she submitted a chapbook of poetry for us, so she has a chapbook with us. So they're just have a long history of being kind of connected to Washington State poets, and yeah, and I'm hoping to kind of expand more to doing full lengths. We don't really do full lengths consistently. We'll occasionally do a special project, but primarily we focus on the chapbook. So.
Based in Seattle?
Yep.
Thank you.
I have a few more questions about that. So I
Yeah.
noticed, I think it was Risa Denenberg's, you did the cover for it. So
Yeah.
who does the artwork and the layout and all of that? Is that all volunteer as well?
Yeah, so we used to, we had a graphic designer who used to work on the covers and do the interior work. But I was, like I said, I was the winner in 2015, and then about a year later I was asked to help edit. And then maybe 8 months after that, I kind of became editor-in-chief because everyone had been serving for a very long time and didn't want to take on additional responsibility. So it was, I always explain it like it wasn't that I stepped up to the role, everyone stepped back and I was left standing. So, but yeah, I've kind of trained myself to do the design work and the interior layout and stuff. So I've had some really good help from one of the other editors, but yeah, mainly it's in-house. So we do the covers, we do the interior layout, and pretty much everything.
So what are your numbers like? How competitive is it?
We average probably between 60 and 120 chapbook submissions each round.
Okay.
So.
And what is the process? How many readers do you have before? How do you guys make your final decision?
So we have, I think currently we have, I believe, just 7 volunteers total, and we read anonymously, and we go through, and we have almost like a book club format where we'll read a handful, the 5 to 10 chapbooks, and then we'll have we've been doing Zoom meetings lately, and we will go in and talk about each chapbook, kind of the pros and cons or merits. Maybe pick a poem or two for Pontoon, which is our online journal component that we have as well. And we'll just do that. We'll kind of narrow it down from our submissions and narrow it down until there's about 15 semifinalists. And then we argue and bicker and talk about the books until we pick a finalist and a winner. So
How long does that process usually take?
it can take, if we're on top of it and we're doing everything according to all the deadlines, we usually can get it done like maybe 4 months, 5 months.
5 months.
Yeah.
I just wondered.
Yeah. So, and then sometimes when there's delays, like this summer, we had a couple staff members who had COVID and then just various different delays. So it's taken a little longer this round, but we always try to kind of keep it consistent. But it is a lot of fun though. And I don't think I've been as excited or like learned as much from any process as actually talking to other editors and seeing their perspectives about what they like in a work, what they don't, and things like that. So it's a really like helpful learning process. And as a writer, it's kind of shown me like, oh, like this is the level of scrutiny that a really good editor will give a book is tremendous. So it's kind of upped my game as a writer too, is realizing one, how many talented writers there are in Washington. Just this state alone is like just flush with really good poets. And two, it just knowing that the editors are looking at it with that kind of lens kind of makes you try even harder.
Have you ever been upset by one that didn't make it?
And so far I haven't been. There's a couple that for one reason or another, it might be that it's not quite our aesthetic. There are some that are maybe a little more experimental than what we publish or a little different in scope. But I mean, there are mostly times when it's like we wish we had the capacity to publish more or the funds to publish more, because there's always a couple that slip by. And if we had the time, like we see the potential for that to become an extremely tight, solid collection, but it's not quite there yet. And if we did have the time, we could get it there with the author and work with them and really do something. But unfortunately, as you probably know, it's just time and money are not on any arts org side, it seems.
All right, well, thank you, Michael.
Oh.
Do you have a favorite form or poetic device?
Like, what do you mean specifically? Like, do you?
Just learning about your style.
Oh, okay.
Style choices.
I don't necessarily like have a favorite per se, but I do have habits that I fall into. I'm very rhetorical. I kind of have a conversation or ask questions, and I do that a lot. And it can go from style to parody if I'm not careful. It becomes a habit that I just fall into, and it's kind of easy for me to have a certain kind of like reaction to my own writing. But yeah, I don't know. I think probably just rhetorical stuff. I get into like philosophical musings all on my own and just spiral sometimes. It's like I said, it's a good thing if I am aware of it and keep it under control.
Thank you.
Jen, can I do one more? I wanted to ask about Elk River. Was Alex a real person and you had a relationship with her?
Alex was a real person, but I twisted the details a lot. So I will confess that there was an Alex who did commit suicide, and this was someone that was in my elementary school, actually. So it wasn't the same way I portrayed it in here, but it was something that, once again, this theme for my youth is that I just had no compassionate way to handle death or anything around grieving. And so it was one of those moments where that had happened at our school and I couldn't process it, and I just basically ignored it or made light of it in a way. And so this is kind of my way to make amends, I guess you could say, is to make it something meaningful for me and meaningful for hopefully for a reader that has been through that kind of loss. And like I said, my younger self I am not very proud of, let's just put it that way. So this is
The
it.
metaphors in that book are just gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Michael. We'll take a quick break, grab some more food, wine, restroom, go around the restroom, use the restroom.